Hi everyone, I'm Ryan. It's a bank holiday weekend and it's not raining, which is very surprising to me at least. So this weekend I'm just going to try and get this engine finished cleaning it up. I bought myself a bag of little tiny Dremel type brushes that I saw Nat using on his engine, and I thought that looks like a good idea. So I'm going to try using some of those. The JD welder's hardened, so that's good. So that engine, once cleaned, is ready to go back into the Super Dream. So the Super Dream out here at the moment, I spent more time double checking the obvious points on the engine. So it is definitely not the timing chain, it's definitely not the valve adjustment, it's definitely not the balancer chain. All those things are correct, and it still sounds awful. The whole thing shakes and vibrates when it starts to run. So I'm going to drop the oil out of it, drop the engine, and I've got a plan for someone to help me next week diagnose exactly what the problem is. Right, let me get going. Two things I'd like to do that I don't have. I'd like to change this for some new white braided, is it sheathing? I quickly looked online and I quickly looked in David Silver and I couldn't obviously find this. So I'm not sure where to get it from, but either way I'm going to probably just leave this for the moment because it's slightly better than nothing. But I need to get some of that, and also on this side the wiring loom here has been wrapped around just with like insulating tape, and it goes hard, it goes dry, so I need to get some of that fabric loom tape and rewrap this. Because yeah, just make that a bit better. But anyway, let me start trying to tidy this up. This here looks a little untidy, but it's functional, so I probably just want to grind that down slightly just to tidy it up there, which is about the only bit you can see. Once it disappears down here, that's completely invisible, so I'm not worried about that at all. And then just try and tidy up like in these fins and in these little difficult to reach places. Just make it look a bit shinier, and then get it back on. Okay, so the engine's going back in and I'm just slowly reconnecting everything. And as I was working in here, right inside the carbs, I noticed on the top of the airbox was a capped off connector, which was clearly what I was meant to have been looking for all the time for connecting up the breather hose. So I've done that, I've now connected it up, and I think that's where it's meant to go, but mine must have been capped off forever. So not sure if it's connected by default on a 400 but not on a 250. Anyway, I think that's a sensible move, so that's where it's going to go. Let me just carry on getting all the carbs on, and yeah, exhausts and electrics and yeah, everything else necessary. But she's in place. So that was the hardest bit done. Used the bungee method again, and I must say, for me at least, that works brilliantly. Right, let me carry on connecting it all up. Well, I took my time, but she's all back together. Looking complete once more, back with the original engine, looking a little bit more shiny. And we'll go for... cold, but she's hanging on to revs at the moment, so I think the carbs need a little bit of dialing in. She's sounding good. Yep, so I'll just make sure it's running okay. I'll make sure that there's no oil leak, and then I can concentrate on fine-tuning the carbs and just getting her just dialed in. But no, one bike back together, fantastic. Which leaves me with this engine over here, which I plan to work with someone next week. Hopefully I can show you a bit of that, and we're going to get to the bottom of what's wrong with that, because something internally is not good. All right, well, I'm going to now concentrate on a bit of cleaning up, a bit of preparation, probably actually working on the frame a little bit. So our scrambler frame sat here for the moment. I want to get rid of this steering lock, so I'm going to just remove the remainers of that and then try and dress that up. I'm tempted to start cleaning up this frame. I haven't touched it yet, but I know I'm going to start modifying the back end at some point, so it doesn't seem a lot of point in getting the whole thing sort of powder coated until I know what's going on at the end. Either way though, it doesn't stop me cleaning it, so I may get onto that today, maybe not, but either way I think I'm going to start cleaning up that steering lock, because I don't want that there anymore. And then I'll try and get this out for a little ride. Right, change of plan. It's now the next day, and yesterday, after I recorded what I was intending to do, we had guests, and unexpectedly, but extremely good, so we sat around and ate pizza. It is now the next day. It is now damp and wet, bank holiday, excellent. So I'm going to try and dial in these carburetors. I don't really know what I'm doing with this. I've got the Haynes manual. I'm going to go through it step by step, and it talks about you warm it up and then you try adjusting this and look at the revs. So let me just follow the guide, see if I can get them as they should be set up, because what I'm finding is it's quite flat on tick over. So when you first try to pull away, it's quite flat. Once the revs climb, it picks up and it goes. So I suspect there's something not quite right there. Right, let's see if I can learn how to do this. Okay. Now, about 1300 RPM. I'm going to try adjusting the mixer screws, see if the revs climb or not. So I've just had the revs. I was adjusting the mixture, and the revs were climbing slightly, so I'm adjusting the tick over down, adjusting it to the point whereby that sounded right. But then when I tried to rev it, the revs just climbed and hung high and then dropped really, really, really slowly, which just doesn't feel right. I've just taken a load of Easy Start and sprayed it all around the inlet manifolds and the front of the cylinders, the front of the carburetors. None of that made any obvious difference. So I don't think it's an air leak, certainly not around that side of the carbs. I'm going to check that they're still balanced. Maybe that's related to it. I did check that previously, but then the carbs have been on and off a dozen times since, so maybe something's disturbed. So I'm going to try and set that up and check that the carbs are synced. Right, that'll take me a little while. Okay, so I've set up this test auxiliary fuel supply. I've just connected up these two gauges on the left, these two on the right, clearly not used because I've only got 2 carbs on my bike. So yeah, the one on the left is connected to the left, the one on the right to the right. Self-explanatory. So I'll put you on a stand, start the bike and see what sort of readings I get. Let's try that now. I'm not sure they're in balance. I was definitely seeing the left-hand needle moving further. It was closer to that 10. I need to look at the book now, see what readings I should be getting. What gauge on that I should be looking at. So let me understand a bit more before we change anything. Okay, this is one of the most fiddly jobs I've ever tried to achieve. So the adjustment is right down, it's that yellow thing, right down in deep in the carbs. There's no direct access onto it. I've managed to use a socket to get down there to make a change. So that is now, I've adjusted it slightly, I can't quite see it from this angle. I've adjusted it, and interestingly, if I start the bike up now, you will see gauges now look more even, and if I rev it slightly, it's much more responsive. So I think that's where it needs to be. Now I need to find out how to lock it off in that position, because I now need to hold the top of it with the screwdriver and lock the lock nut. That is going to be interesting because I've got no access, but let me see what I can work out. Okay, I have spent a lot of time today just going over anything and everything, so I'm sure now the carbs are in sync. I've double checked all the mixture screws. I set them all to 2 turns. I tried adjusting them up and down and they seem to be just right where they are, so I'm comfortable with that. Side panel's off because I've just managed to snap the leg off of it, which is frustrating because it was me being stupid, so I've just glued that back on and it's setting now. All in all, that seems pretty good. One problem I just identified is that I actually had a blowing exhaust down here where the pipes join, and I kept taking it off and trying to seat it, and what I was finding was that this outer pipe here just wouldn't slide into the fitting. So I took it off, and I basically used a Dremel tool to clean up all the inside of the exhaust back to about sort of 2 centimeters in, and then I was finally managed to get this outer pipe to slide in further. Now the outer pipe was sealing, but the inner one wasn't, and the inner one wasn't because it's got a joint under here, and the inner one wasn't able to go back far enough to seal. It was being prevented by the outer one, which seemed counterintuitive, but when I managed to get the outer pipe to slide in, the inner one sealed. Good. Right, so that's all good. Still no sign of any oil up here. This is all still bone dry and clean, so that's good. So I'm going to try and get her out for another test ride. The weather's intermittent, it's a bit wet, but we'll see what we can do. Let's give it a run. So I think I've adjusted all the carbs. I think they're as good as I can get them. Probably still got something wrong. But let's see. With a bit of luck, the camera will remain in place. Okay, pointing there. About there, I guess. There. She feels good, she feels responsive. that was good. I've just got back from a nice test drive. So I've just been out, had it up to speed, had it up to revs. She was up to about 9,000 RPM. Took it to about 65 miles an hour, which felt comfortable, felt all right on it. Just wanted to give it a quick try, and then look down the back, and oh, it's typical. Now it's dripping fuel. But I did look a minute ago, and it was bone dry from an oil perspective. So I've still got intermittent problems with that float valve, so I need to look at that. But there was no oil. I did check before I started filming. No oil at all. So I do believe I have fixed the oil leak, at least for now. It might not be permanent, but at least temporarily she's oil tight, and she's running quite well. So I'm quite pleased with that. A few more bits to do. It's never going to be finished because these things never are, but yeah, I'm pleased. I am quite pleased with that. I think I got myself a usable, working Super Dream, which looks alright. So yeah, that'll do on this, and then I'll carry on with the other one next. Well, that is me out of time for this weekend. It's been good. I've got lots done, so I got the engine back in. It's running okay. The test ride went pretty well. It just felt like it was hesitating a little, but I mean, all in all, it was running, and it was running pretty well. So that's a definite huge improvement. I didn't get on to Sid the Scrambler, but you know, life gets in the way. However, I just want to say thank you very much to all of those that subscribe, comment and support this channel. If you haven't already done so, please consider just clicking that subscribe button, or just the like. That really helps me as well. Until next week, thank you very much, and goodbye for now.